Yes.
Also, as a recruiter, one thing we need to ask in every intake
Mhm.
is there somebody you're thinking about for this role? The
Oh,
worst thing you can do is, oh my God, I got all these resumes and I done talked to 7, 10 people. And they're like, oh, we have an internal candidate. Like, literally, we have an internal. You did all that work for no reason.
all that work for no reason.
You literally took 2 weeks to find out that they already know who they want to hire.
Mhm. And that's when you go into a little bit more. That's why intake is important. So if the hiring manager says, I know who I want to go into this role, but I know in about 2 or 3 weeks I'm gonna have to backfill this position. So okay, so
Hmm.
let's talk about this role a little bit. So then on the flip side, when I am recruiting, I'm actually looking for someone who can fill that role and I can share that role with that person, or I can reach out to people about a new role that we have coming up possibly in the next 3 to 4 weeks. And if they'd be interested, I will already have a pipeline of candidates for that hiring manager so that department is not hurting.
Okay. What is one of the main things that you can do as a recruiter to get the trust of the hiring manager?
Build a
What,
rapport.
give a couple things on how they can get the trust of the hiring manager. Sorry.
So one thing is to make sure I always say put your best foot forward, okay? Um so one, hold a weekly meeting or bi-weekly meeting or a monthly meeting depending on when the hiring manager is available. So you can sit there and you can talk through things with the hiring manager and what they're looking for. Do small talk. Recruiting is sales. I always say recruiting is sales. Talk about the
Hmm.
weather, talk about the children. What do they like to talk about? Get them excited to speak with you. You can honestly build a friendship. I know some people say it's a thin line between that business and work, but you're working with these people every single day. Why not have some type of friendship with the person that you're working with? Of course, with some type of boundaries, of course. So the first thing you want to do is make sure you host those meetings with them. When you are submitting candidates, make sure you're just not submitting candidates just to fill a role. You want that manager to feel like um, that their department is your department, just like the business is your business and you're operating it and wanting to make sure that you're hiring the best person that you talk to, and just share that information with the hiring manager. And that's how you start to build trust, because once they see the type of candidates that you're sending over to them, how you are advocating for this person, how you are explaining why you wouldn't pursue one person over the other, you're kind of helping with that decision just a little bit. They start to trust you in that way, because they're like, okay, she's not going to just send me, or he's not going to just send me anybody just to say, okay, I'm done with this position, moving on to the next. And then you have to go back in 2 months to fill another role because that candidate left. It's not what they were looking for. It wasn't a great fit for the department. It just wasn't good. So once they trust you in that way and they see the type of candidates that you're sending over, the type of questions that you're sending over, and you build a great friendship with that hiring manager, then they'll start to trust you. And at that time, they might say, if you think they're good, go ahead and hire them. You have hiring managers like that. They don't might not even want to talk to the person. They might say, okay, let me just see them for a little bit, depending on how busy they are and what industry you're working in. Not all hiring managers are like that. But
Hmm.
you have some hiring managers says, okay, I trust you. After filling the last 10 of my positions, they all great. They're still here. If you think they're good, go ahead and extend the offer.
Definitely.
And that's why it's
Um,
important. Important.
I definitely want to piggyback on what you just said, but I'm going to go from when it's not such a good situation. So, number one, be honest. We're not getting the type of candidates that we want. Like, don't sugarcoat. Tell the hiring manager, hey, we're not getting great candidates. We're not doing this. I love the weekly meetings, but be honest in the weekly meetings. Also say, hey, this is the criteria we talked about in the first one. I sent you a couple of people. You didn't like them. They made those criteria. We call it a recalibration or a reintake. Hey, on one of our weekly meetings, hey, it's been like 3 weeks. We have not had a good person I've sent you. These are the notes I have. Do I need to readjust these notes? Doing that will also make them have faith in you at this moment. Like, okay, he sees that it's been a little while, because what most people don't know is, for the most part, all jobs need to be filled within 90 days
Mm-hmm.
from the time that they're open. Anything over 90 days is a problem for the hiring manager, the hiring manager's manager, goes all the way up to the CEO. We gave you money for this. Why isn't it filled? And then it's also a problem for you, your manager as the recruiter, the recruiting manager. They want to know what's going on. It's been open for 100 days. It's been open for 120 days. So both of you are on the clock. So that's why it's good that you have a symbiotic relationship where everybody's like, okay, we're on the same page. But be on the same page when the candidates are trash, or saying trash. But we've both been in a situation where nobody's applying to this that we need, like nobody. So you have to tell them up front, we're not getting the right candidates.
Yeah.
Where you worked before, do you have any contacts? Is there any group that you're a part of on LinkedIn that I could tap into and get this posted? Let them know, like, they will have faith in you as long as they know that you're trying just as hard as they are. And then you can also put the onus on them. Hey, do you know of anybody? Do you know of any of this? Do you know of any of that? Because all the times that I'm going to say 80 to 85% of the time, the right people do apply to the position.
Mm-hmm.
But then you're in a situation sort of like the last 6 months, maybe in the last year, where a lot of companies are laying off. And people feel like they're skilled and transferable, but they're not to certain positions. There are certain positions you have the skills or you don't. So you have to be honest, open and honest. This is what I'm seeing. I've sent you, and you can break it down. I've sent you 10 people. You didn't like any of the 10 people. This is why I sent you the people. Do we need to readjust what we're looking for? What do you do in that situation?
No, that's really good. And I'm glad that you actually touched on that for recruiters and, hiring managers when they're looking to hire their ideal candidate. Like you mentioned, being straightforward with the recruiter, with the hiring manager as a recruiter. And I think also coming with data also helps the hiring manager to understand. So you can say, hey, this week we had 150 people apply for XYZ role. Out of the 100 people that applied, only 2 people qualified. Out of those 2 people who qualified, they're missing this, and this, which is also, what you said that you want is a must-have that is not even on the job description, because you'll also have that with hiring managers when it comes to certain software. Are you willing to train this person on that? Because now the role has been open for 90 days and this is what we're getting. So once you start showing data and you start showing the numbers and the platforms you use and other areas that you try to source candidates and the type of people who's applying, once you start showing a consistent history or even weekly, because sometimes it's really good to go ahead and present that weekly as your weekly reports to your hiring managers. So if it does get up to the CEO why this position has been open for 180 days and not filled, you have all the documentation to share why. So if they wanted to go into the system to see, okay, let's see what type of people are actually applying, or the hiring manager wants to go in there and look at these resumes, they're able to see, okay, yeah, I might have to make some changes about what I'm looking for in this role because my team needs the help. I'm hurting, my team is hurting, and I just got to make the time to train this person so that the company is not hurting as a whole. So that's when you have those conversations, with those real conversations with your hiring managers when it's time to bring someone on board. Because sometimes you'll have a position where, what is it, cancer registrar, something like that in the hospital. I think they have training, or they get a certificate like once a year, and most of the times they're already working at different hospitals. So what do you do at that time? Because you can't bring anybody on board until once that training is complete. So how do you stand out different for someone? By that time you're reaching out to these people who's working at other hospitals to say, hey, this is what are you interested, this is what we can offer. And at this time you're selling the position to someone because your company definitely needs it. So you may have a situation like that. So it's just being honest and realistic with your hiring managers, and by that time they should know that, especially when it comes to that type of role. Okay, if I don't get these people as soon as this training is done, my department might hurt for a year. So am I willing to train, or am I willing to do something else, or create a new role that could potentially help this department? So just be honest. Yeah.